You know, oftentimes when people talk about the future of work, they think about a lot of the software that will change, the physical environment that will change, and we can sort of imagine in our mind what some of that would be. But some of the more daunting challenges are actually just how do we organize people? You know, when we have a problem in our personal lives, we can ask our friends on Facebook or, you know, other social media channels. Sometimes we'll say, well, can you come over and help me? And they'll come help me. And the fluidity with which that we share information, help each other, and don't assume that we have to know everything. We work like a network with the people we know, with our families and friends. But in companies, we have all this weird baggage around even asking for help, admitting we don't know something, sharing what we're doing.
The places people work today, there are networks that are very top-down, that are determined by the institution, the company, the employer, and it doesn't mesh with what we feel and see in our personal lives, of these loose networks that are dynamic. And so clearly there's going to be a change. Everything is changing so that our work lives feel more like the rest of our lives, and networks are going to reflect that as well.
When we talk about working like a network, we're not just talking about your employees inside your company. We're also talking about how you work like a network with your customers, with your partners, so that all of those constituencies can share information and help each other create the best products and services.
Most of our current productivity paradigms are really based on individuals doing individual work at individual workstations. And yet we know that in this fast-paced, real-time world of, information abundance, it's actually very, very hard today for any individual to wrap their head around all of the information and data and communications that are out there.
The complexity of the stuff that we do has really demanded this really intense, high volume collaboration between people.
We all have to recognise that we don't have enough skills on our own to make something that's going to be extraordinary.
As we become more and more specialized, as innovation increases, the need to rely on other people's competencies becomes even more important than it ever was. The idea of each person being his or her own island and handling everything has been gone for a while, but it's slipping away even quicker now.
Collaborating and working together are better strategies than struggling alone. This shifts value creation from the individual to the collective. As we think about teams in the future, and we can't think about the 9-to-5 hierarchical enterprise structure that we have today, we really have to think about much more dynamic teams that are formed around projects that make use of contingent labor, that make use of independent experts. And these teams will be formed and banded and disbanded again in a very, very fluid way. A little bit more like the Hollywood model, if you like, in the film industry.
When Hollywood makes a movie, the first thing they do is they form a company for the purposes of making that movie. And then they subscribe talent to that movie for as long as the production lasts. And then when that's over, the company is dissolved. People go back into the great flow of human talent and they wait for the next project to come along.
It sort of atomizes a lot of careers, especially for folks that have white-collar jobs, information worker jobs, where you start to assemble your work from a bunch of different projects, maybe different employers. It's a very, very different view of what our work is.
We know that in the US by 2020, 40, perhaps 50% of the workforce will be contingent.
It used to be the case that you could envision working for 30 or 40 years for the same company. Now people manage their careers in 2 and 3 and 4 year increments.
It's not really about having an office full of 10,000 people anymore. You can have a network of 10,000 people that are technically not employed by the same person, but are working together to create something and build something.
Work has become more global. The connections that we make and the collaborations that we undertake can just as easily be with someone on the other side of the planet as they can be with someone who's around the corner.
Teams of the future will be a collection of brilliance and experience that comes together just for a particular challenge or project or mini project. It will be a continuous lifelong learning process.
Down at the individual level, you're going to have some skills that we probably didn't see before. One is going to be a confidence and a curiosity to know things that are not in your lane. We're going to have to say you have to have functional expertise, but you're going to have wide area consciousness of what's happening, because what you do functionally must fit into the whole or it's of irrelevance. The second is risk-taking. But we are going to have to tell people you have to take risks. We will underwrite those risks that are not a risk of a moral or legal nature. We'll underwrite even judgment errors because everybody's going to make them. That's how you're going to learn.
The things that we used to think of as the things that sort of really didn't matter, it might make work marginally better, have become absolutely central to the task. Empathy, compassion, trust, cooperation matter more because innovation is a team sport, because the demands of the creative economy have accelerated. These kinds of skills have always been thought of as really soft, squishy kinds of skills, but the reality is that they are really the motor that makes joint creativity and makes innovation really possible.
The one thing we know about mindfulness is that we've shown that practicing it for as little as 8 weeks increases people's compassionate behavior automatically. And if you're building a team, that's hugely important, because if people on the team are compassionate, what that means is you're building a resilient team. When one person fails, the others will come and support that link from the bottom up.
Our ability to recruit others to our cause, our ability to see the nascent potential in an idea, requires them to be empathic with us, and vice versa.
When I talk about empathy and compassion and trust, the question of whether it's a must-have or whether it's something nice to have often comes up. People think, oh, that sounds nice, but is it really going to affect the bottom line? And the answer is yeah. What it does is it increases a team's collaboration. It also makes them much more resilient and much more capable of adapting to any changes that come. All the models we know of in terms of evolutionary models of give and take suggest that groups that are more compassionate and more trusting over time have the best outcomes.
We're in the middle of not just a technological change, I think, but really a cultural change that's impacting leadership down to try to understand how to act in this new world, how to act in a world where we need each other's information to make better decisions. This is a huge change for most big companies today. The good news is that because we're just at the beginning of this generational change, even small investments, even small changes in this direction to become more responsive, I believe will yield disproportionate results. People are going to figure out how to leverage the information better through working like a network with their employees, customers, and partners, through leveraging the talents of their employees so that they can be empowered to make the right decisions. That's what's going to make organizations successful in the future.